I'd like I said here, the tubing to be longer so I could install the fans on the right side. Unfortunately, it's still a bit short. Time to upgrade my computer here. I'm going to keep my case, a Thermaltake Core P5. I'm keeping my cooling system, the Water 3.0. I have 4 SSDs I'm keeping, 3 in the front and there's 1 in the back. I'm keeping my ASUS Strix RX 580 graphic cards and my Rosewill power supply. So I'm going to upgrade here. The motherboard I have is a ASUS Crosshair 5 formula. This is like 5 years old. I have DDR3, I'm upgrading that to DDR4 of course, and I have a FX 8350. That board was very stable. I was able to overclock that processor to 4.2 gigahertz and it runs very cool. So that was very good motherboard. So I'm changing this for the MSI B450. This has 2 slots for M.2 and when I install it I'll give you more information. This will go with the Ryzen 5. I chose the 3600 model. This gives you, I think, in my opinion, more bang for the bucks. I have a very fast M.2 SSD. This is faster than a SATA SSD, so I'll put my Windows and my programs on this. And for my memory, I have 2 sticks, 16 gigabyte in total, and this is Corsair Vengeance, the RGB model. I thought this would be a good addition to my case here with all of my lights. So let's take this motherboard out and put the MSI in place. Back to the motherboard for a few seconds. I chose the B450 because it is cheaper, and unless you need SLI or PCI 4.0, you don't really need to pay more for the X470 or the X570 boards. They cost more, so I decided to spend less and go with the B450. As you can see on the box, this motherboard has the flash BIOS button, so you can flash the BIOS without any component installed. As you can see, the power supply is working and the motherboard is connected, but there is no memory and no CPU, and as you can see we are getting a fault because there is no CPU. And I have the flash drive over here, and I press the little BIOS button update and the light is flashing. The BIOS update should take about 5 minutes according to documentation. Now I have installed the M.2 SSD here, our processor, the Ryzen 5, and my 2 sticks of DDR4 memory. I have my new motherboard installed now, and as you can see I installed the stock cooler that comes with the Ryzen 5 because I don't have the bracket yet to install the Water 3.0 cooler I have here on the side. So I plugged it just for having the fans turning. But yeah, I'm going to update that soon. And you can see here the LED from the 2 brackets from Corsair Vengeance. They are actually very bright. So I'm going to access the app and see if I can turn them down a bit. The motherboard also has LED or RGB, as you can see here, lighting. I'm going to focus here between the graphic card and the fan. And here also on the side of the motherboard, you can see here between the memory and the fan again, we can see here. So a lot of RGB effects on this motherboard, and I know that with the app we can adjust that. Slight change in plan during the build. Instead of ordering the AM4 socket for my cooler head over here, I decided to sell it on Kijiji, and I bought the new Water 3.0 system. So the RGB lights it's a different setup, and also the cooling block has RGB, which is very nice. So I'm going to install this instead. So I have to remove here all the fans and the radiator. Just a comment here about the new Water 3.0 versus the old one. The old fan, as you can see, is black, and there was only one connector for both power and the light. The new fans are white, so I wonder how this will be when it rotates, because white is not really the theme on my build. And also it has two cables, one for power and one to control the RGB from the motherboard or the control unit. So you get here basically 6 cables in total for the 3 fans, and here we had only 3 cables in the previous version. I am now installing the new radiator. When I bought my Thermaltake Core P5 case, these brackets were not included. I had to buy them separately. So they are required if you want to install a radiator, as you can see here. So they go on these brackets, and then you use the brackets to install everything on the case. Here is the catch about this motherboard, and it's only in the small prints in the manual. It's not on the box, of course. If you install a M.2 drive in slot number 1, you will disable SATA 4 and 5. As you can see, I have 4 SSDs already, so I cannot add another one. And if you install a M.2 in slot number 2, you will disable PCI slot 2, 3, 4, and 5. Yeah, that's hard to believe, but it's in the small prints once you open the manual. Now I just installed a new radiator and the 3 fans. Like I said, they're white. I guess this is for the RGB lights. I would prefer fans to be black. And like I said, you have 2 cables per fan. So this will be a lot of cable management. I'll have to feed here on the side to the back of the motherboard. Now I removed what I call the temporary air cooler, and I installed the water block. It's a tight fit over here. It was very hard to install with the bracket here because of this plate on the motherboard. So this was kind of a pain to install. The tubing is too short. I was hoping it would be a bit longer so I could put the fans on this side. So we'll see why once I connect everything and I start this up. I thought I would just show all the cables here, or I should say extra cables, because of these RGB fans. So we have 8 cables in total. We have 3 fans, 2 cables each. We have a cable for the RGB of the cooling block, and 1 cable goes to a J-Rainbow on the MSI motherboard, the header. So we have 8 extra cables to manage in the back. Now I am halfway done with the cabling. I have here the power, so it's a splitter, all 3 for the 3 fans. And look at this puzzle here. This is the RGB control cable, and the last cable being the RGB on the cooling block. So I need to find a way to fit this puzzle in there so that I can put the cover. Fortunately, there is a cover that goes at the back here. I used twist wraps to put or to try to put all the cables together, as you can see here, so that I don't have too much trouble when I need to put the back cover on. So hopefully this works now. I was able to run all the fans cables on the left side, as you can see. So that makes for a clean installation because the right side is totally free. There are no cables in front of the SSDs. And also I forgot to mention that the fans have a rubber pad here where the screws are, so to absorb any vibrations. I reinstalled my RX 580 graphic card, and we're good to go. Time to plug everything and see how this will perform. Alright, it's all working, guys, and look at that. Unfortunately, the colors on the LED here for the fans are all over the place because I cannot get the MSI Mystic Light to talk to the fans here, so I had to send an email to MSI support. I don't know what's going on. Nice here to see the block. The cooling block has some RGB. And this is what I meant here at the beginning of the video a couple of times. I wish the fans were here on the right side. So this will be more balanced. The SSD would be in the middle. And we would also see, as you can see right there, we would see more the lighting from the side of the motherboard, which is now hidden by those big bright fans. So that's a bit unfortunate in my opinion, but this is the build that we have. In closing, I'd like to talk about a few limitations with this build. First is the motherboard. As we saw, if you plug in an M.2 drive. Second, these memory strips, they stay on even if you put the PC to sleep. And that's kind of normal because they're on the same 5 volts as the one needed to feed the RAM to keep them alive. So that's a bit annoying. Now I need to change my habit. I need to turn my PC off when at night, so that I don't damage, or I'm afraid that these LEDs would just die after 6 months. The J Rainbow header on the MSI motherboard does not work, like I said before, so still waiting for support on that. In the meantime, I installed the controller for the fans, but there is a speed button like the previous version, but this one controls the speed of the LEDs, not the speed of the fans. So I'm using now here my quick switch to lower the speed and the noise of the fan. So, and also here, almost forgot, when I installed the block and the power into CPU fan, the cooling block was making a strange noise. So I went to the BIOS and I changed the auto detect to PWM. That solved the problem, but you should not need to do that to go to the BIOS when you install this cooler. I'd like I said here, the tubing to be longer so I could install the fans on the right side. Unfortunately, it's still a bit short. And finally, I'd like one app to control all these lights. At the moment, I have the ASUS Aura to control the lights on the RX 580. I have a switch on the power supply. I have now the controller here for the cooling fans. And I have Corsair, the app for the memory strips. So it would be nice to have only one app to control all these lights. Thank you for watching, guys. So this is the end of the build. Ryzen 5 and a Thermaltake Core P5. So thanks again, and if you have any questions, put them down below. I'll be happy to get back to you. Have a great day. Goodbye, guys.